Today we are going to read Gamer Squad, Attack of the Not-So-Virtual Monsters by Kim Harrington. This is one of our 3rd through 5th grade SSYRA books for the 2020-2021 school year. This is the dedication page. It says, "To Mike and Ryan, my favorite gamers." Chapter 1. The monster had a penguin's body, a unicorn's head, and sharp fangs. It bounced from one webbed foot to the other. The little beast was taunting me, right there on the sidewalk in front of my own house. But I'd get it. I narrowed my eyes and concentrated. The late afternoon sun burned against my back, and a bead of sweat dripped down from my forehead into my eyes. But I didn't blink. I acted. With a quick swipe of my finger, I launched a battle net. The monster ducked. I swiped again, anticipating its next move, and bam! Caught! My best friend Charlie whooped and hollered from over my shoulder. "Yay, Bex! You got it!" I gave Charlie a little smile, but I didn't feel a huge sense of satisfaction. I'd caught uniguins before. They were common in our neighborhood. I wanted to catch something better, like a vamp wolf. I'd caught only one of those. I reached up and tightened my ponytail. On humid days like today, my mess of long brown curls seemed to double in size. "Want to walk to the park and see if there are any better monsters there?" Charlie held up the cell phone in his hand and waved it back and forth. "My hour is up. I have to return this to my mom." Oh, right. Monsters Unleashed was a mobile game, and while I was lucky, 12 years old, with my own phone, Charlie had to borrow his mom's, so he could only play for short periods. "I guess I'll go home and bring it back," he said, looking up at his house but not moving his feet. His older brother's bike was in the driveway, and when Jason Tepper Jr. was home, that meant Charlie would be tortured. "Do you want to come over after?" I asked. "I think my mom made lemonade and cookies today." Charlie's face lit up. "That sounds great. See you in a minute." He ran to his house, his sneakers kicking up dirt, and I started walking to mine. Charlie and I had been friends since I moved into the house next door to his when I was 5. He was always around and more than willing to play or hang out. We'd finished elementary school about a month ago and would be entering 7th grade at the end of summer. Middle school. Sometimes I worried that things wouldn't be the same in our new school. Toward the end of the 6th grade, some kids had started making fun of us for being best friends because he was a boy and I was a girl. But no matter what changes came, I would never dump my best friend, and he'd never drop me. I hoped. In the meantime, we had the summer and Monsters Unleashed. When the Monsters Unleashed game came out a month earlier, its popularity quickly exploded. The first couple of days, it was just the kids and gamers out there playing. Then I saw Mrs. Dorsey, the librarian, playing it in the park. And Old Man Humphrey, whose former favorite hobby was yelling out his front window at any kid who dared poke a toe onto his grass, was caught trespassing in a neighbor's yard to catch a teddy glop. Now, instead of yelling at us to stay off his lawn, he yelled things like, "There's a fire wing in the common! Good luck!" My parents usually nagged me about playing too many video games. "Why don't you and Charlie go for a nature walk or ride bikes?" When I was your age, I spent all summer riding my bike. But when they were our age, video games were like Stone Age quality. No wonder they abandoned their joysticks to wander outside aimlessly. They didn't complain much about Monsters Unleashed. To play, you had to leave your house. The game was about hybrid monsters that were created in a lab. But then they broke out, and the players needed to catch them in the real world. The mobile game used your phone and graphics card to make it look like the monster was really there. You caught them battle nets, which were nets made of magical material that could trap a monster and zap it into your phone. The door slammed behind me as I entered my house. A breeze from the air conditioner hit my face, and it felt so refreshing that I closed my eyes and sighed. "Bexley?" Mom's voice called out. "Is that you?" I cringed at the use of my full name. The day I turned 18, I swore I was going to legally change it to just Bex. I turned the corner into the kitchen and inhaled deeply. Cookies. Was there any better smell in the world? Mom was sitting at the kitchen island, squinting at her laptop. I grabbed a warm cookie and said, "You know, your glasses work better when you put them in front of your eyes." "I lost them again," Mom said absent-mindedly as she scrolled. I did one of those fake coughs into my hand. Mom looked up. "What?" I pointed to the top of her head. She patted her wavy brown and gray hair and laughed as she felt the wire-rimmed glasses perched on top. "Thanks, honey." "No problem, genius." The joke was, my mom was kind of a genius. She started her own online business selling personalized jewelry out of her house, and it had grown a ton this year, increasing sales month after month. But while she ran a business entirely by herself, sometimes the little things slipped by her, like losing her glasses when they were on top of her head. "Charlie's coming over in a minute," I said between bites of cookies. Her eyes had returned to her computer screen. "He can stay for dinner if he'd like. I have lasagna in the oven." My parents were pretty cool about Charlie coming over a lot, mostly because he was my best friend, but also because they knew how miserable things were for him next door with his bully of a brother. The front door opened and shut, and a voice called out, "Yes! Air conditioning!" Charlie came strutting into the kitchen, his blonde hair flopping into his eyes. He wore a gray T-shirt with the NASA logo on it because it wasn't enough to be nerdy, he had to advertise it as well. He immediately grabbed a cookie and moaned after his first bite. "This cookie is incredible, Mrs. Grayson." "When you're done conquering the jewelry world, you should start another business selling these." "Maybe I will, Charlie," Mom beamed. "But in the meantime, I have to take a conference call in my office." She pointed at the oven. "When that beeps, take the lasagna out." Lasagna," Charlie said dreamily. "Yes, you're invited," I said. "Mrs. Grayson, you're the best," he called out. Mom waved over her shoulder as she carried her laptop out of the room. Once she was gone, Charlie slid into a chair and did a little drum roll with his hands on the island. "So I've been thinking about your problem. I know there are so many," he smirked. "The monsters unleashed one. How you're sick of catching the common monsters and want to find the rare ones. And that theory you came up with that monsters like to hang out in old places with a lot of history." "Yeah, I think we proved that idea true when we found the vamp wolf outside the church downtown." "But we already hit up the obvious old places, the town hall, the churches." I took a long sip of lemonade. "Exactly. We need to know where else in town is old or historically significant." Charlie wagged his eyebrows up and down. I giggled. I smelled an idea brewing. Like literally. I think there's smoke coming from your ears. He punched me lightly on the arm. So my grandfather has all this old stuff in his attic. Sometimes I spend the day at his house, if you're busy, or, well, whatever. But one time, when I was up in his attic, I saw this map. I sat up straighter in my seat. What kind of map? It was a map of town, but it was from the 1800s. My pulse sped up as I realized where he was going with this. So everything on that map that still exists today would be really old. Charlie nodded. We could find where the monsters are hiding. The cool, rare monsters. I clapped my hands together. Would your grandfather be up for two visits? Charlie smiled, his braces gleaming, and motioned at the plate in front of us. As long as we bring him some of these cookies. After dinner, Charlie and I headed out to his grandfather's house. I held a foil-covered paper plate full of cookies in one hand and my phone in the other. Grandpa Tepper lived on the other side of town common. And if we had to walk through it anyway, I figured I might as well see if there are any monsters around. The sun was setting, and different monsters came out at night. How do you know the moon is going broke? Charlie asked. I gave him a look. I was not in the mood for one of his science jokes. Come on, he elbowed me lightly in the side. How do you know the moon is going broke? With a sigh, I said, I don't know. How? It's down to its last quarter. He laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. I ended up joining in, not because I liked it or any of his science jokes, but because Charlie's laugh was kind of contagious. Finally, we reached the town common. It was an open, grassy area where people could picnic or throw a frisbee around on a nice day. There was a white gazebo in the center, next to a statue of John Wolcott, the founder of Wolcott, Massachusetts. I caught an oink cat at that statue once that had earned me 100 experience points. I was hoping to catch another monster now, but as we neared the gazebo, I froze. Someone else was hanging out by the statue. Someone I really didn't want to see. And we will stop here at chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter of Attack of the Not-So-Virtual Monsters, Gamer Squad 1. If you like this book, you can check it out for yourself and read it on your own and not have to wait for chapter 2.